Okay, so we're going to officially get started now. So, hey guys, my name is Mike Tarallo. I am a Senior Product Marketing Manager with Qlik. I also am a moderator and administrator for the QlikSense community forums. So welcome to this new series, which I'm excited to present to you today, called Do More with Qlik for Beginners and Beyond. And thank you so much for joining me, and I'm really happy to share what I know, my product knowledge, as well as my love for Qlik with you all. So what are we going to do today? As mentioned, if any of you have seen the promos or email campaigns or Twitter posts, etc., we're basically going to kick off the session today, and I'm briefly going to go into the format of this new series, the content that is going to be available, basically so proper expectations are set, and then we'll end the session by covering a useful feature and topic today, known as Comparative Analysis, also known as alternate states, and then provide some resources where you can learn more on your own, and we'll provide some Q&A. Okay, I would like you to think about it. If you've ever attended our world conferences, there's a number of different sessions that are informative and help you learn about Qlik. But why wait once a year for something like that? With kicking off this series, we're going to do this more often, okay, and share my love for Qlik and knowledge with you, and that way you can proliferate that knowledge to others and also learn how to do more with Qlik. Now, we do have a few housekeeping items. Note that there's a Q&A panel. It might look something like this. I don't know if On24 had updated it at all, but I encourage you to type in the questions during the presentation, and I'll cover them towards the end. These questions that I do not get to, I can always answer them in email directly by replying to the registration email. So in other words, when you register for this webinar, you'll get a registration email. If you reply to that, it'll come to me directly. So if I don't get to your question or you have a question later, just reply to that with your question, and I promise to get back to you. I try to make sure I have an empty inbox by the end of the day. I'm very diligent in that matter as well. Okay? And we definitely want to hear from you, so please speak up. Okay, ways to get in touch with us. If you're interested in learning more, you can contact us from qlik.com or follow us for immediate updates and insights via our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, you can join that conversation with myself and others in the Qlik community. As mentioned, you could also reach me directly by replying to the registration email. If you have specific technical how-to type troubleshooting questions, I encourage you to log them in the community. That way I can also respond to them, or at least if I don't know an answer, I'm not going to pretend to know it. I'm going to get you somebody that will be able to help you. Okay, so you could always tag me in the community, search my name, get my info, and tag me as well. Okay, my job here is to make you excited about the product, provide some contagious enthusiasm about what I know and love about the product, and then help you as well become familiar with it. Okay, so now this is what the webinar is about. Okay, so the plan for this is we're going to hold these webinars twice a month, every other Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. The registration page, which is at the link at the bottom, will be updated on a regular basis, informing those of topics and speakers that will be presented, giving you advance notice of the information to be presented. I'm also going to start using webcam, so you'll be able to see myself and my speakers. We just didn't have enough time to get that all today because we're also working right now within the middle of a product release, so my time has been very thin. So my goal is to present 30 minutes on a particular feature, a topic, a capability, a tip, a trick, a solution that basically will help you get more out of Qlik and maybe even enlighten you to something you did not even know existed. And topics are going to vary and can cover many areas of the Qlik product spectrum. So if I want to do Qlik SaaS, software as a service, and Qlik Cloud, I might jump into Qlik Catalog, and we might do some Qlik data integration, specific features and topics on QlikSense, et cetera. It's going to be that type of genre that we can cover. Okay, and I plan to do it within a fun, interesting, and engaging manner. Now, the other thing to also understand is that this is not just a Mike Tarallo show. I will be inviting guests to join me so they can also present what they know and love about Qlik. My guests will be my Qlik colleagues, my valued network partners, and even our community members. So that means people that love using Qlik and are enthusiastic about using it, maybe some of you attending right now, you can join me on this call and be my guest in the series. So if you have an idea, a suggestion, or topic that you want to present or you would like me to cover, share it with me basically by replying to the registration email confirmation, and it'll come directly to me, and I can follow up and we can discuss that, the particulars of that. So next Thursday, not next Thursday, I'm sorry, the next session, which is June 18th at 2 p.m., I'm going to have my colleague and partner in crime, Jeff Goldberg, who's Qlik Product Manager of APIs and Integration. He's going to join me to introduce you to something really new and exciting for the Qlik Analytics platform, our command line interface for our software as a service platforms and cloud-based editions. So if you are in an IT role, administration role, or developer Qlik, you're not going to want to miss this. Okay, so that's set up at that registration link, June 18th at 2 p.m. Okay, so let's get started with the topic of the day, and it is comparative analysis, also known as alternate states. Okay, and after we're done with this, we're going to wrap up the Q&A. And as I mentioned, trying to keep these short and sweet, and there will be an archive of these, and they will be recorded, and we're going to keep these in a section, in the Qlik community, and I'm sure you'll also get follow-ups from our other marketing departments. At the same point, let me just check the state. I see there are questions coming in. Good suggestion on the microphone. Yeah, right now I'm logged in with my mobile using a plug-in headset. I am going to do probably the voice over IP with another headset and the webcam next. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay. So a bit about comparative analysis. So all versions to date of QlikSense, okay, this is going to cover specifically to QlikSense, but this capability is available in QlikView as well. It's just performed a little bit differently. And this is not a new feature, so to speak, when it comes to Qlik product line, because it has been available in QlikView. It's new to QlikSense in the sense that recently released the past couple of versions. Okay, some people don't know it's there, and some people don't know how to use it. This came up within a conversation within the Qlik community, so this particular topic was inspired by that conversation, and I figured it'd be a good topic to discuss today. So all versions of QlikSense to this date allow you to designate like specific selections and visualizations that you can interact with one another on an individual basis, independently of what's called the default selection state. So you can make different value selections on the same dimension and basically compare the measure's results in two or more visualizations side by side. The results are instant association between the items. So a good use case for this would be like performing sort of like a basket analysis, if you will, trying to identify relationships among the selections. And you do this by creating what's called states, which hold a set of your selections. Okay, so alternate states are created in our master item library. And once you see me do this in the demonstration, it is so simple to do. You're going to be like, wow, I didn't know it was there. Or if you did know it was there, tell me in the Q&A how you use it. I'd love to know. Basically, it's done within the master library items, and you just drag and drop onto the individual objects to create those states. Now, something else that's awesome, that's cool, as you see here in this particular chart, you can also represent the states as measures within a chart, so you can compare them immediately. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that using a very simple expression within the expression that you put in the measure. So primary use cases for this is basically for what it was designed for originally, for comparing and contrasting different values side by side. But it's also good for isolating selections. In other words, or isolating sheet selections. For example, you can just specify one particular selection value list to just control one chart, and all the other ones will not respect that. Okay? So these states can be predefined for a specific visualization. Okay, so we're going to go into the demonstration of this. Now, if you guys want sample apps, sample data, just speak up and let me know. I'd be more than happy to provide those for you. What I'm going to do is also, when I archive these video presentations, they're going to be available within the community. Now, the other part of this presentation, as I mentioned, this is for beginners and beyond. I also throw a couple of elements of, if you're a new user to Qlik, you'll see me, here's how you create an app, or here's how you add some data. All of that stuff is recorded and made available in our resources, but you'll see some elements of that also when I go through these particular presentations. And if you are a new user to Qlik and you would like me to provide you with a what's new type of getting started webinar, make that in the suggestions and we'll add that, and then we'll get the appropriate audience members to join for that particular one as well. So in this example here, I'm actually using Qlik Sense Business, okay? And any of you can get a 30-day trial if you haven't done that already, simply by going to qlik.com and then clicking try for free and then registering, and then it'll step you through the process to create what's called your own tenant. And you can see here, tenant is just basically your own server, and mine's called domore.us.qlikcloud.com, okay? I'm not going to get into pricing. I'm not going to get into licensing, all that. You can handle all that stuff with a Qlik sales representative if you want. I'm here to provide you with all the awesome, fun, visual stuff. So I'm actually now in my hub, which is a centralized location for organizing and securing content that is important to me. And I have different views and different context areas to basically organize in my content. That could be a topic for another session, talking about what's called spaces. But in this case here, these are my individual apps or links. These apps can be created directly within this environment, or I can upload them from another environment or migrate them over from different editions of Qlik Sense. So here I'm just going to add a new app and select Create App. We're going to call this one Comparative Analysis, and we'll give it a title of Demo-2. And we're just going to put it in our default personal area, meaning nobody else can see this except me. And then we're going to click the Open button, and this is going to bring up the individual location of where we're going to add some data. So now we're going to add data from files and other sources. So by clicking this button, this provides me with an interface that allows me to select various connectors to select to on-premise packaged applications, cloud-based sources of data. Okay, in this example, I have a Dropbox connection already configured and authenticated, so I'm going to use this connection as a way to navigate the file within my cloud storage. And here I have a folder called QS Data, and I have my orders Excel file. So this is just basically containing my measures, my dimensions, my keys, my who, what, where, and when, etc., all the stuff that I'd like to use for my analysis. And I'm simply just going to add that to my sheet, let it profile it, load the index, click Close, and then I can immediately get started by clicking Edit and looking at the field. But before I do this, I actually want to go to our Context menu into the Data Manager. I want to add a little bit more data here, and I have some local data in the data files that I've uploaded. In this case here, I have one called Customer. And the Customer data file has my customers, my categories, and my products. And I'm going to add those directly into here as well. And we're not going to spend time here on data preparation, but in this case here, let me just clean up one of these. I was doing some additional work and I forgot, and I added the wrong file on accident. Let me add my customer data as well. Excuse me one moment. I made a mistake. Oh, there we go. Hold on one second. Okay, so now we're just going to take this particular information here, and we're going to automatically link them together. These are suggested ways of how these particular tables, customers and products, are linking automatically to the orders table. I'm going to take those suggestions and apply them and click Load Data. And then we're going to go directly into editing the sheet. Okay, now as I mentioned, guys, I don't have anybody moderating this with me, so I have to keep track of the other screen. I have one person that is mentioning that the audio is cutting in and out, or at least for that individual, starting and stopping. If that is the case for anybody else on the webinar, can you please let me know? For the individuals having problem with the audio, please refresh your screen. It could be your web connection that's causing the problem. If not, it could be my microphone, and I'm not even aware of it. So that's the one thing I'm not sure of. So I need to know if others are experiencing that or just one individual. Okay. I'll keep track of that on the side as well. Okay, so now we have our data loaded into our sheet, okay? And we're ready to start creating our visualizations. Okay, now obviously we talked about comparative analysis, but before we compare anything, we need to actually produce something. So with the power of our cognitive engine, I'm just going to navigate to my fields and just grab my sales figures, and I'm just going to drop sales right onto the canvas, and it creates a KPI, key performance indicator visualization. It basically allows me to keep track of the performance of my metrics. Now, I can turn off what's called chart suggestions, have access to full properties to all these different visualizations. I can rename, I can set formatting, all that good stuff here, total sales, etc. But now, at this point here, all I'm going to do is select Control-C and then Control-V. Now I've created two particular KPI objects. I want to create a comparison for these objects against my categories. So I'm going to look for my countries, and I'm just going to drag country right on top of the KPI. Turn on my chart suggestions. By turning on chart suggestions, the cognitive engine is enabled and allows to create appropriate visualizations by simply dragging and dropping the values onto the screen. Okay, so now we have two maps of the same value. Okay, so looking at country, looking at sales. Now I'm going to grab my country once again, and by holding my Shift key and dragging, it creates a list box. And I'm going to do the same thing, Control-C and Control-V. Okay, so what you see here is the makings of creating a comparative analysis. Now, I'll go into a completed example once we're done. But what you're doing is you're individually controlling the visualizations that you want to select and compare from. So in this case here, we're going to compare countries for sum of sales side by side. Okay? And this is a pretty simple or an oversimplification of this. Now, if we go to our master items, you'll notice that we have dimensions, measures, visualizations, and alternate states. Now, the default state is what you all know and love or should be familiar with, whereas with everything updates automatically with a selection. Okay, simply by selecting, everything updates, all the visualizations update the same. Even if I grab another visualization here, let's just move this over here for a second. Put a chart in, let's just put a bar chart in. In this case here, we'll add our cities. And once again, we'll just do sum of sales. Okay, when I go into my analysis view, everything updates automatically. There's no manual wiring involved. That is part of what we call global context. It is a unique part of the Qlik associative engine that basically allows all the associations to automatically be enabled when the data is loaded, and you see everything update instantaneously with simple clicks. Okay, but now when alternate states come in, let's call this one state 1. This is just visually identifying the different states, state 2. And we're going to call this list box state 1, and this list box state 2. Okay, so all we've done is created same visualizations and same list boxes. Now, within the master items, we can create a state, and we can give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to call the state 1, just for simplicity purposes. And then we're going to create another state, and we're going to call that state 2. Now, all you need to do is drop the state onto the visualization and onto the list box that you want to control. So I want state 1 to control this visualization, and I want state 1 to be associated and control this list box. So by simply doing that, you'll notice that nothing else updates except that visualization. Okay, depending on what my selections are. So I just individually isolated this visualization in this select box from everything else from the default state, simply by applying those states. Now we'll grab state 2, drop it here on this list box, and drop state 2 directly here on top of this visualization. We go into analysis mode. I want to compare Canada with the US. And now you can see each individual visualization is controlled side by side individually. Okay, so that is an example of performing comparative analysis using the alternate states, which is also known as capability, simply by applying the state to the visualization and the select box you want to control. Now, it gets even better because states can also be listed as measures. So let's do a chart manually here. Let's do a line chart, because what we're going to do is perform looking at data over time. And the best way to represent that is with a line chart. So our dimension here in this case is going to be, let's see, what do we have here? Let's just use order date. And once again, sales and sum of sales. Okay, so this is all of the data that's available within the data set that we loaded, and this is the default view of that data. Sum of sales by order date. Watch what I do over here. I'm going to right-click on sum of sales, and we have an option to perform duplicate, the measure. This is a great shortcut, basically, when you want to start using our measure modifiers, which could be set up for another show, another webinar that I plan on doing. But basically, duplicating the measures allows you to now then easily modify expressions. So you're kind of retaining additional work that you might have put into the calculation, and then you're reusing that. So for example, here we have sum of sales. So we're just going to call this one total all sales. And then this one, sum of sales, we're going to call this one state 1. And this sum of sales we'll call state 2. Okay, so now this is where the differences lie. So let's move this box down. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take this guy here, and we're just going to copy him, paste him in, go back, copy state 2, and paste him in. Okay, one little trick also, make sure your selection states are cleared sometimes when developing, because some of the results within your view might not look right when you're developing, and that might be because you had selections applied from a previous test or something that you were working on. So if you remember, in our master items, we have state 1 and state 2 as those states. Well, we can represent the sum of sales as those actual states. So what we do is we go into our data for our measure, and we simply modify the expression to use, it's called SetAnalysis, and we can talk about that also in the future if you're not familiar with it, but it's a way of basically applying selection states to data automatically to that measure and restricting it to that set. So you could say, where country equals Germany or something like that, but we can actually now just apply the state. So when you perform the selections, it's going to respect that state dynamically. Okay, so you can see here we have sum bracket state 1, or the name of the state, close bracket, and then our measure. Okay, we're going to do that also for state 2. Okay, you also notice the validation on the bottom. Click apply. So now we have state 1 and state 2. So as we perform selections, so if I select US, you can see US is now in yellow. And if I select Germany, you can see state 2 is in red. So you can perform the side-by-side comparison directly within a single visualization, simply by referencing the state within the measure. And this still will be effective for any of the selections that you're working with. So that is representing that state. Okay, very cool. So that's pretty much it. So this is how I planned on running these webinars. It's almost 2:30. This is almost exactly in line with plan. Now, we can go longer if we need to, depending on how many questions that we have. Suggestions, as I said, all that other type of thing. But this is what alternate states is about. Very simply applied, allows you to perform that comparative analysis directly within QlikSense apps. Okay, and the one that I had prepared is a little bit, one actually one of my colleagues created for me, a little bit more sexier. Let's see if this is the one he gave me. No, that's not it. It's probably under the Do More logo. Where's my Do More? Explore, Do More with Qlik. There it is. This is the ones that we use for a demo. And this is available on our download site. In our demo site. So we should have a section called Alternate States, and you can download our What's New app that contains this particular example there. As you can see here, everything is all in one page. So you have your different states as your measures, as well as your individual states as KPI objects. Okay, so at this point, I turn it over to you, and I do see a couple of questions in here I can go through. If you have any other questions, start entering them in now. And as I mentioned, if you're too shy, then send me a direct mail by replying to the registration, and I'll answer it that way. So let me see if I can answer any of these. Okay. Here's a question about the webinar. So can we watch the webinars at other times? And not being in the U.S. makes timing a bit inconvenient. And I agree with you completely on that. I will work with my program manager to see if this is something that we can replicate in other regions. However, these will be recorded. The only negative to that is you won't be able to ask live questions. But I think there is a capability within the actual interfaces. See, imagine you're watching this as a recording, and if you send a Q&A question to the panel, I think I'll still get it. So, like, I'll see a question come in at like 2 in the morning because it's in another region. It's like, oh, somebody must have been watching one of my webinars, and I could always respond that way as well. But I will try to find out if there's any live sessions, but you can watch them recorded. Couple of nice comments. So a couple of people have mentioned that they have been using it for the first time, using it for customer orders, and it works really well when using comparative periods, such as using weeks and orders versus previous week, year to date, etc. Good comment. Thank you. Couple of nice comments. Okay, so question regarding if you want to do a selection A versus selection B, do you have to code some sales selection A, A or selection B? No, you don't. As you saw that, it was simple, just drag and drop on top of the individual list boxes. However, if you do want to perform the measure within the expression, for the measure of the visualization, then you do have to specify the state. But you don't have to put all of the measures within there. I will be doing a future session on SetAnalysis where we will talk about locking data to specific or restricting data to specific sets of data that you can hard code within your measures. Very similar. Like you could always do a comparative analysis with SetAnalysis by saying, I want to look at Germany in one measure versus the United States in another and hard code those values. But selection states makes it a lot easier to do that without having to code any of that syntax. Got a good question here that I'm going to have to get back to you on. Can I associate alternate state to a specific user in section access of the app? So for those of you who are not familiar with section access, that is a way of securing your columns and data rows down to a specific role or user account. So I'm not sure if that's something that can be done, but I will ask the experts on that, and I will make sure to get back to you. Can you have two or more sets, and is there a way of limiting on the number of states one can apply? That is a good question. I'm not sure if there's any user control on limiting the number of states that someone can apply. I think there might be a default system limit on how many you could add, which I have not researched yet. I'll have to look in the help for that, but I don't know if you can actually control that by user. Is it possible to limit the selection to only one item at a time? Yes, you can do that by restricting your measure to that set analysis state that I mentioned earlier, and I can talk about that. Let me bring up something so if people start to leave, I just want to show you something. There's a section here called New to Qlik Sense Topics You Need to Know. So if you're like me and you like watching short videos on something really informative, then you're going to want to go to this page and see all of the other content that is available here to view on your own. One of them being SetAnalysis, which is on here as well, which will kind of answer that particular question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put the URL in here as a question, and I'm going to reply to all so all of you have that link. Okay, so going through some questions. Comments. Okay, we got a good suggestions on learning about maps. Yeah, I love working with geoanalytics. I will definitely have one of those. For those of you who are interested on learning more about geoanalytics and working with maps, you might want to look at in our community, get familiar with Qlik Geoanalytics. And I go through a number of different topics there, and I think I have it under here. Let me see. Get familiar with Qlik Geoanalytics series. Okay, so the community has got a plethora of information that's out there. It's going to help you self-serve. Basically, look this information up. Everything usually has a video or a sample attached to it to help get you going. And what I did is I sent this link also to all of you as well. Okay. Oh, I see an insight bot in here somewhere. Can I use blah, blah, blah? Hold on. This interface is crazy with questions. I would love to. Okay, got that one. Are there impacts on performance using states? No, there are not, because Qlik brings the data into its in-memory structure, and using states is just like basically just applying selections and performing selections, but it's a way of isolating those states to individual visualizations. Can you use a not indicator in SetAnalysis? Since I don't want to get off topic too much here, but the answer is yes. Basically, you would use a minus sign with an equal sign next to it, like this. And I just sent you the answer. And you could reply to the registration email if you want to follow up on that. Just got to that question. I will tell everybody right now. My daughter is on here. She just said, "I love you, Daddy." Very nice. Oh, so cute. Thank you, Madison. Will InsightBot support measures created with a state? That is a very good question. That I do not know. I know we added bookmarks recently, and as you know, or you may not know, is that you could actually set a state within a bookmark. So I'm not too sure about that, but I'll have to get back to you. Or follow up with me in the community. So the quotes for the state was double quotes. So when you're representing the actual state as a measure, you're using double quotes. Thank you. Comments? Good question. Will I do a webinar in QlikView? Well, guess what? So as I mentioned, this is not just a Mike Tarallo show. So I'm going to have product managers. I'm going to have community members, partners. So my knowledge is strictly in QlikSense, as well as, some of the intricacies of the data integration products. I started with QlikView 8 years ago, but I didn't spend much time with it, so I cannot do anything personally in QlikView anymore from what I remember. It has been a while since I used it, but I will put that on the agenda to see if we can have one of our product managers or somebody present for QlikView. Is it possible to highlight the boxes depending on which state is applied to them? So in this case here, oh, I see what you're saying. So you know which state is there. So right now, even though we said state 1 and state 2, so I think, so right now the states are applied within the properties. So if you go to the properties, you'll see that in the pane here, there's that. There's a alternate states right here. That's how you can see if it's applied. Good question. What would, all of these are good questions. It's just so used to saying that. What would be a use case to apply alternate states to the whole sheet? Okay, so what this person means is that if you select anywhere on the sheet here, you'll notice that there's a section for alternate states. You have inherited and default state, and then you could apply basically the state to all the objects. So I haven't done this just yet. I believe what this means is that instead of individually selecting each object and applying a state to those objects, you can just apply it to the actual sheet, and then all the objects on that sheet will reflect that state. At that point, what you're doing is just restricting that particular sheet to just that state for your selections. I'm going to try and ask the product manager that I worked with on this particular one just to see if there's any other use cases on that. Is states more efficient than hard coding SetAnalysis on resources? At this point, it's really user developer preference. So for those of you who are not familiar with SetAnalysis, I mean, this is an example of SetAnalysis. Okay, so that's a SetAnalysis statement that restricts my measure of sum of sales, or the aggregated sum of sales, to Germany. So if I put that in a KPI, it's kind of like saying where sales is equal to Germany. Now, you saw how fast I typed that. It's just because I've been doing it for a long time. I prefer doing this just because I'm a code geek. But, SetAnalysis and the states is going to allow you to link the particular list box or the particular visualization to that particular state. So it goes by user preference, and there is particular use cases for that. Another nice comment from my daughter. Thank you, Maddie. Okay, it looks like we're coming to the end of the questions. Okay, so somebody said using the whole sheet. They've applied the whole sheet for sales, for example, for a sales period 1, and then they use a formula to do the difference between the selected value and period 2, I guess. I'd have to see that. I have a problem visualizing stuff in my mind sometimes. I usually got to see it on paper. Okay, so other than that, this definitely met my expectations. For the type of webinar that I wanted to create and do. I used to do the getting started webinars, and those became monotonous, in my opinion, kind of boring, but I still think they're useful. So I will talk with my program manager and team to see, Okay, next webinar series, we're going to do Getting Started with QlikSense. We're going to show you all of the intricacies, the associative difference. So this is going to run for as long as I'm here, let's say, okay? And I don't plan on going anywhere. So we have plenty of topics. Some things we can revisit. Some things might have been done, X times in the past, and I'm going to do it again to drill it into your head, et cetera. But there's so much good stuff and so much knowledge out there. And also having the guest speakers join me. As I mentioned, my colleague Jeff Goldberg, if you guys are going to see the command line interface thing where you can do batch programming for Qlik, administrative tasks, I mean, that is so cool. I just didn't have a chance to get that up and running on my environment. So hopefully whoever is interested in that will see you on that webinar. We've got more questions coming in. Thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate that. Keep in touch. Okay, I will do so. The person who told me to send them an email. The registration for the next webinar will be available. So you're basically going to go to my storytelling. You'll notice I like to create presentations in storytelling. So you're going to go here, go.qlik.com, do more with QlikSense. I'm going to throw that in there as another question. I have to find out where these linked locations are. And I'm going to answer to all, and you should have this link. Okay, so the registration for the next webinar will be available right here. You can see June 18th. Okay, Jeff Goldberg will introduce you to our new command line interface for SAS. Thank you for the nice comments. This is great. I appreciate that, and my pleasure. All right, guys, so I'm going to hang on for a few minutes just to see if there's any other questions that are coming in. If not, I will see you guys, or hope you. And if you want to be a repeat customer, come on back. I'm happy to have you. If I don't talk to you here, I'll talk to you within the community or on Twitter. There is a question here about conducting webinars on Qlik Engine APIs, Qlik repository services. Absolutely. That's part of where Jeff comes in. Jeff is our API product manager. And Jeff's going to be a repeating guest on this webinar series. Jeff and I go way back when he was pre-sales back in the day at Qlik. So now he's product manager of APIs and integration. So definitely are going to have topics on, mashups and integration with REST, all the good stuff also for developers. Yeah, there we go. We got some comments. I've never used alternate states before, and now they could tell how easy it was. Do you have to register every time? Yes, because each session is different. Basically, you'll have to, secure your spot, so to speak, for that type of session. So as I mentioned, this page is going to be updated. So after the 18th, this will then be updated with sessions for July. And then you click on each one, and it's going to have the update of what it's going to be. And the reason we're doing it that way is we want to get the appropriate audience members. So if I do a getting started with Qlik one day, I'm pretty sure those who are seasoned in QlikSense are not going to want to join that unless you just want to, kill a couple of minutes, listen to me spew. Maybe you learn something you didn't know, et cetera. But we want to make sure we get the appropriate audience members as well. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in. As mentioned, I always hang on for about a minute or two. And here we go, questions coming in. Are alternate states useful with Big Data Index? That is a good question. I don't think the Big Data Index engine supports alternate states just yet, because Big Data Index is live against the source data, issuing the query back. So I don't know if that is actual supported functionality. Each release of Big Data Index that comes out, they support more functionality, such as different groupings, different aggregations, different functions. Like we just, recently support like standard deviation or total or only. Those are different functions that are available for aggregate function on measures. So that I don't know just yet. Okay. All right, guys. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you on the next one or in the community or on Twitter. Take care, all. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Bye-bye.